Today we're going to show you how to change a drum bearing sleeve on your dryer, and it's a really easy job. All we're going to need is a number 2 Phillips and a number 2 square head screwdriver, a small flat blade screwdriver, and a pair of needle nose pliers. Let me show you how we do it. Now before we begin this repair, since we will be working around some electrical circuits, we will need to disconnect power to the dryer. So if it has a cord on it, simply unplug it from the receptacle. And if it's a hardwired dryer, we'll need to locate the breaker or fuse panel and disconnect the power there. Now on this front load model, we are going to need to remove the back cover from the control panel first. It's held in place with 3 Phillips screws. We'll just set that aside. Next we'll remove 2 longer screws that hold the top panel in place, and you can use your number 2 square head screwdriver for those. And we'll set those aside. And we can lift up on the front of that top panel, just pull it forward and lift it off. Next we're going to remove 2 screws that secure the console to the cabinet. And again, the number 2 square head screwdriver will work for those. So we're just going to lift up on that whole assembly. And we'll just roll it right over and lay it on top of that crossbar. Next we'll disconnect the 2 wire harnesses to the door switch and light circuits. Just lift up on the locking tab and pull the harness away. Next we're going to remove 2 screws on the top of the front panel, and we're going to loosen 2 of them on the bottom. And we'll use the number 2 square head. Loosen the bottom ones at least 2 or 3 full turns, and completely remove the top ones. And support that front panel while you remove the last screw. And then just lift up on the front lip of that drum to support the weight of it, and then tilt the front panel forward. And then lift it off of the screws on the bottom. There's 2 slotted areas on the outside edges of that front panel that will slide down over those 2 screws. Now with the front panel removed, we now are ready to disconnect the belt from the drum so that we can pull the drum out to gain access. Now it's a bit of a tight fit here, so we're going to have to slide one hand in through the opening on the left hand side of the drum at the bottom. You can lift up on the drum, be pushing against the tension of the belt, but once you put your hand in there, you'll feel the idler along that side and the belt that rolls over the top of it and down underneath onto the motor pulley. So we're going to grasp that shaft that the idler pulley is on, and we're going to push it towards the center of the dryer to release the tension on the belt, and at the same time we're going to try to roll that belt off towards us to the front of the dryer so that it clears that shaft, and then we can reach down and roll it off the motor pulley until it's free. Now next we're going to support the weight of the drum with the belt, just reaching in from the top. So we're just going to grasp that belt, pick up on the drum a bit, and then pull it forward. It's a tight fit coming through the cabinet, so we'll have to rock it side by side. You may even have to force the cabinet open a little bit just to get it through. At this point we can roll the belt right off the back of the drum, then pull the drum completely out through the front. And that'll give us access to the rear bearing sleeve and the O-ring. Now to replace the bearing sleeve, we'll take our flat blade screwdriver and we're going to get in underneath the edge of this retaining O-ring, if it's still in place, and just force it out enough that we can roll it up out of the groove and off the end of the shaft. And you should probably replace that at the same time that you replace the bearing. Simply slide the old bearing off and discard it. Make sure the shaft is not scored. We'll slide our new bearing into place. Install the O-ring. Before we do that, we'll just make sure that there's no sharp edges around that groove, and that it's clean. Then we'll roll that O-ring into position. And now we're ready to reinstall the drum. Now when reinstalling the drum on this dryer, because it's very hard to see how to reroute the belt around the idler pulley and motor shaft, we've removed the drum to give you a better idea. So with the drum in place and the belt just hanging around the perimeter of the drum, we're going to feel our way through that. We're going to pull that belt up over top of the idler. We're going to pull it down while pulling tension on that idler towards the center so that we can roll the belt around the motor pulley and let the tension hold it in place. Now we'll start by just inserting the back of the drum into the cabinet. You may need to wiggle it through that opening because it's a bit snug. Now the belt is going to ride in the groove towards the back, so once we get it back part way, we can take that belt, we'll drape it right around the drum. We'll keep the groove side of the belt against the drum and get it roughly into position. And we can use that belt to lift the drum as we push it back into place. Then we'll want to center it up so that the bearing and shaft line up with the bearing receptacle on the back panel. So make sure the front lip is inside the cabinet first. And we'll just carefully lift it, center it up. And once we've got both lips of that drum inside the cabinet, we'll line up that rear bearing, make sure it's fully inserted. Again, we'll verify that we've got the belt in the proper groove. And then we're going to reach in on this left side while holding up on the drum, just to give yourself enough room to get your arm in there. And once we feel that belt, we'll pull it forward of the idler, form a loop in it, and roll it over top of the idler. And then we're going to force that loop down onto the motor pulley. So we may need to lift up on that drum, and then we'll also have to push over on that idler arm against the tension of the spring, and that'll give us the extra length in the belt that we need to roll it onto the motor pulley. Now if you find that difficult, you can roll it onto the motor pulley first and then pull it up around and over top of the idler pulley, but you will again need to put tension on that idler pulley, pushing it towards the center of the dryer, making sure that the belt that runs down on the left-hand side is already to the left of the idler. It's the portion of the belt that comes underneath the drum that we need to roll around the front of the idler and up into place. Now if you have difficulty doing that with just one hand, you can slide another hand in through under the center, reach over, and then you can hold that idler with one hand and use your other one to roll the belt up onto the pulley. Just by feel, we want to make sure that we have the groove side of the belt against the motor pulley and against the drum. The flat side of the belt will be across the top of the idler pulley. Carefully pull both your hands back out, and then we're going to verify that we've got that belt still in the proper position. And you can rotate it gently, line that belt up. You should see the lower wheel turning as you rotate the drum. Now give it a couple of full turns just to make sure that everything is in position. Check the belt. It's lined up properly. We can now go ahead and put the front panel on. Now to reinstall the front panel, we're going to sit the front panel in position, lining up those two slots with the screws on the bottom, and tilt it into place, and then we'll lift up on that drum to allow it to go in fully. And then we'll line up the slots on the side with the openings in the cabinet, and then replace the two screws. Next, we'll tighten the two screws on the bottom. Next, we'll reconnect the wire harnesses to make sure that the locking tabs engage, and then we can rotate that console. Then we're going to line up these tabs to catch over the edge of the top and the front panel. So viewing that from the back, we'll make sure that they slide down and engage those. And then we can reinstall the 2 screws to hold it in place. Next, we'll reinstall the top panel. We want to make sure that the 2 slotted openings at the back of that top panel engage 2 tabs right at the rear of the cabinet. So just line those up, push them back into place, and make sure they're engaged and that they won't lift up. And then we can install the 2 screws on the front. Next, we'll install that cover on the back of the control panel. Now we're ready to reconnect the power, and our repair is complete.